Saki mbwembwana kwele mchele kwa kuku kumwaga. Sako na wapenda yatusema nitasikia.
Hello, my name is Kelly Coveny, and Ann Wells is a dear, dear friend. And when she and Lila said that they were doing this Unite Scholars program for scholars in Tanzania, I was so excited to be able to do a video. My background, I went to Northwestern and then went into advertising. So I worked at Fakona Belding in Chicago and DDB Needham. Came to New York and worked at Saatchi & Saatchi for many years. And I love creating brands. So I thought one of the things that I think is sort of a mistake that gets made often these days is people jump directly into how to market what they're selling. So they're about social media and trying to figure what platforms to be on, how to do Google search words, but they do that before they figure out exactly who and what their brand is. So it's sort of like building a house without having set the foundation. So I wanted to talk about branding and the best ways of getting at what exactly your brand is. So the brand essence, the core attributes that make up your brand. I think it's best to sort of start by finding out what it is that you're making. And that seems like a really simple question, right? Well, I'm making coffee if I'm Starbucks. But that's not how they did it. That's not how they set out to make that plan. They decided that they didn't make coffee. What they wanted to make was a gathering place for communities where they served coffee. So then that allowed them to also bring in food. And now there's a lot of food. They had music for a while. But you've got to figure out sort of what the biggest picture is of what it is that you make. So is it coffee or is it a local gathering place for people? Because you're going to talk about that two different ways. So once you figure out what it is that you're actually making, whether it's, I worked on Olay, which is a skincare product for a very long time when I was at Saatchi. And it wasn't about just selling moisturizer. It was about selling the idea of youth, because it was a lot of anti-aging. So, and that's a different thing, because then the way you go at it is different. So I think finding out what it is exactly that you make and figuring out if there's a higher level to that, or is it in fact. Okay, so the next thing would be brand mission, and that's an equally critical part. Why are you making what you're making? Beyond obviously wanting to be profitable and making money, there's got to be sort of another reason, because you could make anything. You could make coffee, you could make jewelry. So why is it that you're making exactly what you're making? If it's jewelry, is it to showcase, the incredible local talent of women in your town? Or is it to provide accessories in a market crowded with sameness that is unique and special and handmade? There can be all different ways as to how you explore what that mission is, but you kind of need to know that, because it will give you the energy behind the brand that sort of lifts it up and makes it special. And then brand personality. That's a super, super important piece of it. I try whenever I'm starting out branding for anything to come up with 3 adjectives that define who that brand is. Like if it was a person, what 3 adjectives would define the brand? So let's take the jewelry example. Maybe it's about, the brand is about empowering, uniqueness, and edginess. That would be one brand personality. Take the same jewelry and you could approach it from a different, way of thinking, and maybe it's fun, festive, and positive. And it's a much more like light, effervescent feel. Whereas the first one is more about like taking charge. It could also be something totally over here that's elegant with a beachy vibe. So it could be sort of more about fashion and playfulness in that realm, or it could be more about empowering women and be over here. But that personality is going to really have a big effect on how the messaging gets carried out, and what the brand stands for. So, the next step after you've sort of created this brand architecture where you have a mission statement, and you have the brand personality, and you've really clearly defined what it is that you're making and what that higher purpose is, or what that bigger picture is, in addition to just the actual product. Once you've got all of that together, then you can translate that into what the advertising is going to be. So you can figure out, what the packaging, how is that going to inform what the packaging design looks like? What the brand, if you have brand ambassadors that you're choosing to help get that message and that awareness out there, what kind of social posts should they be doing? What kind of attitude and messaging should they have based on how you've set up the brand personality? That's all really important. Otherwise, the brand ends up being this disparate sense of all different entities that never gels together, and is recognizable as that brand, whatever it is. It's an important thing to figure out what the color palette is going to be based off of that, because that's going to also set a tone, and what the look and feel is going to be. If you're, going to choose real life photography, or it's going to be illustration, and it's going to be whimsical illustration, or it's going to be powerful illustration. Again, you can see where that brand personality is going to come into play in terms of executing the vision for what the brand is. And that's, of course, messaging is key. So it's not just what you're going to say in terms of, this is unique jewelry that costs less. That's the what of what you're going to say. But then you also really need to think about, based on that brand personality, how am I going to now put a framework around that, and infuse it with a little bit of life and a little bit of spark that's going to make it come alive. That's going to be this particular brand, as opposed to the sea of brands that are trying to be unique and empowering, or whatever that mission is. So this is obviously just sort of an overview, but if you begin with the brand architecture and the brand essence, the rest flows, and it sort of naturally, organically comes out of that, and you don't feel like you're trying to wrangle things together that don't necessarily fit. The most important thing you can have as a brand, really all it is this essence of your voice and what your vision is for it. So it's really, really critical to start with what that is. So I just thank you so much for watching this video, and wish you all luck in branding. And Anne and Lila, thank you so much for including me in this. Best of luck to you all. Thanks. Bye.
Nanipaga moyo nikianza kulia, chozi nafutia.